So welcome to this session on MD 412, and today's class will focus on instructional design. However, while we are waiting for some of the other learners to join, in case you have any questions, you can ask me. Then we'll start after 5 minutes. In case it is related, since this is your last class, related to the program or to your assignments or any other things, you can ask me that, and your questions might be helpful to the other learners also. So, Mr. Morris, you wanted to ask me a question. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Prof. I wanted to find out pertaining to the exams. How are we going to write the exams? And we wanted to find out the structure of the examination paper. Is it going to be subjective or objective? Then the
So
other
that,
question, okay.
yes, please. Yes, please continue.
The other question is, are we going to have any extension on the assignment submission, or 31st March still stands as the last date for submitting the assignments?
Okay. So as far as the examination is concerned, just now there are two types of students who are participating in this counseling. Some of you are those who are admitted in the PG diploma in distance education, and some of you are those who are enrolled for the masters in distance education, and this is year one of the master's program. So there may be a difference in the pattern of the question paper for diploma holder, for the diploma program and for the master's program, but closer to the date of examination, closer to the examination, you will be informed about what type of paper it will be. Just now, it will not be possible for me to give you a response about the type of the design of the paper, but maybe in another next month or so, we will tell you about it. But I just want to point out that the assignments are also an important part of the assessment process. In both these PGDDE and MADE, assignments are 25% of the weightage is from the marks that you obtain in the assignment. So please do take the assignments seriously, because your final question paper will only be of 75 marks and 25 marks will come out of your assignment. And if you are able to do the assignment well, then you have an advantage, because then you only have to get those grades for the final term end examination. There are no percentage or marks in the examination. PGDD and MAD both have grades, which means that you will get A, B, C, D, or E. Because both these programs are professional programs, therefore, you have to get a minimum C grade to be declared passed. If you get a D grade, then you will not be considered passed. In your term end examination, you must be able to get C. A, of course, is excellent. B is very good. C is good. But below C, we don't consider that as the passing grade. So if that happens, then it will be a problem. Your marks of your grades that you obtain in the assignment, as well as the grades that you obtain in the term end, will be put together, and a combined grade will be given to you. Okay. So as far as extension of dates of the assignment, as of now, because you see the university is notifying the dates for all the programs. It's not that they are notifying the date for PGDD or for MAD first year. It is for all the programs. And therefore, if in the next 2 days there is some notification which comes, which tells us that the date of submission of assignments has been increased to 31st, beyond 31st March, then you will be informed through the LMS. it will be informed, but it cannot be for any one program. That is a policy decision which is taken by the university across the programs. Okay. So anybody else who wants to ask any question?
Maybe the last one, Prof.
Yes.
Yeah, before we sit for the final exams, I understand that we need to, is it apply?
Need to visit your?
Is it, before we sit for the final exam, I understand that we need to apply or we fill in a certain form. So we'll be guided.
No, I didn't understand that. You want to be informed about what?
He is asking that for us to sit for exam, there is examination form that we fill.
Examination form.
We are expecting, yes.
Okay. I think that will be done closer to the date of the examination. Maybe in the month of once the date of the examination is certain, then they will ask you, because I think you are under a particular program. I'll have to check it out, but I think all of you do have to sit for the examination, because this is a special program which is being run under the MOU of the Government of India and the governments of different countries of Africa. So under that MOU, all of you have to sit for the exam in June, unless of course there is some very circumstances which are beyond anyone's control. But it is expected that you will sit for the examination, because then we don't know how much longer the program will continue. This is a special program which is under the MOU, like we have had for Guyana also, which is the Guyana Academy of Online Learning. We have an MOU with them also. So the students did sit for the examination in December, which was, for them, it was completely free, and the government was paying. But as I understand that there will be, in case they don't clear in that time frame, then they may have to make some other arrangement for financial arrangement for it. So I would advise that please mentally and academically prepare yourself that you will sit for the examination in the first attempt itself. You should sit for the examination and clear it. More importantly, from an academic point of view, you've been having counseling classes, so at least these topics are fresh in your mind and will remain fresh in your minds in the next 2 months also. We will try to see if we can have some counseling. I will check with the authorities if we can have a counseling just before the examination. We can have 1 or 2 sessions just to do a quick revision, or in case you have any doubts or something like that, we will check on that. But otherwise, please mentally prepare that you should be able to appear for the examination in the first attempt itself. Okay. There are 5 papers. That's not very difficult to do. Yes, anyone else? Mr. Matthews, were you saying something? I saw someone saying. Yes, Mr. Kevin.
Yes, I wanted to ask. Yes, I wanted to ask. Can we be availed with maybe the contact information on the people who are connecting the programs in our countries? Maybe if we want clarification, we can ask them.
Oh, I will note that down, because that information is not with me. But I will check who are the people in the respective countries there who can guide you. That's what you want? Your country coordinators?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Which country are you from, Mr. Kelvin? Which country are you from? Just as a matter of information.
I'm from Zambia.
I think he's
from where?
From Zambia.
Zambia. Okay. So I know
Zambia.
I will check.
I
will check and get back to you and inform you. If their country coordinators are there, then they can also be a source of useful information for all of you.
Can you also check for Malawi, please?
Then,
Yes,
Madam, I also wanted to find out, I've just joined the session. I don't know if my colleagues have asked the question. I wanted to find out the format of the exam.
Of the
Is it going to
examination?
be, yes, the format
Yes,
of the exam. Is it
Mr. Morris had
the,
asked that question, but that we will let you know a little closer to the examination, not just now.
all right, so I appreciate.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Matthew. You want to ask a question, Mr. Matthews? You're on mute. I'm not able to hear you.
All right, yeah, thank you. Okay, my question is just maybe to add on what Morris asked earlier. I don't know if he asked that question. To say, how are I going to write the exams? Are we going to sit for exams in variety, in a number of centers within our countries, or we are going to write online? I don't know. How are we going to write the exams? The honor of the mode of writing exams.
Oh, well, as far as the exam, thank you. As far as the examination is concerned, it will be an online, to the best of my knowledge as of now, it will. But because if it is, you see, what happens is sometimes it is for some programs, I don't know about this program, but otherwise it can be a multiple choice questions also. So those are not very difficult to answer. It can be a proctored. It may be a proctored examination also, that the examination officials will tell us closer to the date what are the kind of arrangements which they have made, because as you will appreciate that different countries have different kind of challenges, and whether it will be online or it will be in a particular room or something like that we will be able to tell you only later, once the student evaluation division has coordinated, because there are lots of countries in this under this eVidya Bharati. So they will have to coordinate with each country to see what kind of a best arrangement can be made to hold the examination. So that is, you'll have to wait for that. Okay, so I think we should start the session so that we are able to, I'll just put on the PPT. And this particular session is important because we are going to be doing the last session here. It's my last session, so you can ask me questions which are related to other topics also. But as of now, I'm going to talk about the unit which is roughly around block 4, and the unit is on instructional design, and that is important because it is the heart of the courses on instructional design. So obviously instructional design unit is important for you all. So I'm putting it on now, the PPT, and do let me know if you are able to see it, whether it comes on.
Okay.
Is it coming on now?
It's not displaying.
Not yet.
Not yet. Today we are having a little bit of a internet issue, but hopefully it should come on. Is it coming on now?
Now it's yes.
It's visible now.
Yeah.
It's visible. Wonderful. Wonderful. So now the one that we are doing today, as I said, we are talking about the MD 412 block 4, which is on instructional design and practice. And today what we are going to do is that we will try to see how whatever we have learned, whether it is the theories of education learning, which we did in block 2, in block 1, what we did in block 2 in terms of the models, also in terms of the fact that in block 3 you also did about learning outcomes, assessment. So we're going to see how these are applied in instructional design when we are using it, because ultimate aim of this course is that you should be able to write a unit which is on instructional design. So the first question that I'm asking you is, if you recall, if any of you recalls, what is the difference between objectives and learning outcomes? If you remember, in block 3, we had done unit 13, which was on learning objectives and learning outcomes. In case you remember that, please let me know. Otherwise, we will, before I go further, I'll just explain that also to you. Does anybody remember? Okay.
Yes,
So I
do
can't see any
remember.
hands.
Yes.
Yes.
I
Please,
do
Mr.
remember.
Abba.
Objective is
Yes.
what is intended. Yeah, what is intended to achieve before the course or the topic. But the outcome is what has been achieved after the completion of a unit or a chapter. That's basically what I understand about the two.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very well answered. I'm very happy to hear that answer. It is intention versus achievement. What is intended to be done as against what is actually done. Objectives are what teachers plan when they're when they're starting their curriculum, when they're planning their course, when they're selecting the content, deciding the kind of experience they want for the class. Those are, the teacher designs the objectives, because it is her objective to do these activities and pursue them. But achievements, learning outcomes, are related to the achievements of learners. And when learners process the course and they are able to attain the competencies which are based on the objectives, then, and these outcomes are tested through assessment practices, then we say that the learning outcomes have been achieved. Thank you very much, Mr. Abba Masood. That was a very nice and good answer. So here again, I'm also writing the same thing, intention versus achievement. And in this particular session that I'm going to take up, my learning outcomes are to explain the concept of a curriculum and discuss curriculum planning, to explain the characteristics of open distance learning materials, to explain the concept of access devices, to explain the format of self-learning materials, and to design assessment-based learning based on learning theories so that learning outcomes can be achieved. And when we are doing this, the first thing that I want to take up is curriculum planning. When we talk of a curriculum, we are talking about a plan. We are talking about a framework which is going to be the basis by which we are going to plan our course or our class, or the way in which we are going to achieve what has been written in our aim of our course. And therefore, when we talk about curriculum planning, normally we are using in distance learning, we are talking about curriculum planning in which the learner is at the center. If you can see this this diagram, you'll see that the learner is right at the center. And in that center, the learner, the first thing that has to be done when we are designing any curriculum is to define or identify what are the aims and objectives of the course. What is it that we hope to achieve through this course? What is it that will be the outcomes of the course, as well as the fact that when the students have completed the course, then what kind of outcomes will be tested so that they are able to complete it. This is irrespective of which course you're designing. This is something where teachers and curriculum planners have to give a lot of thought. And I must tell you also that each of us in our countries have policies also. Like in India, we have just 2 years back in July 2020, we have launched the new educational policy 2020, in which there are certain directions which are given. Now, those directions are placed before the curriculum planners. Also, they are in the minds of the curriculum planners. So, when they are talking about curriculum planning, then the application or the implementation of the policies is also carried out through these kind of curriculum planning. I'm sure that in your country also, you must be, when you're designing curriculum, there are larger issues which are there, and those are reflected through the courses that are identified to be taken up, whether at higher education or at graduation or post graduation levels. And then, though curriculum planning is made, there are also other ways in which curriculums are designed, and we'll just talk about those. Secondly, once the aim has been decided that this is the aim of the program, then the next important thing is to decide what kind of content will be placed within the curriculum so that these aims and objectives can be achieved. Therefore, the curriculum committee or the curriculum advisory board will look at different types of content which is to be selected. And this is a very, very important and delicate exercise, because the curriculum, the selection of, for instance, if it's let's say it's a curriculum on language learning or English learning, then which kind of poets and their work will you select? Which kind of scholars will you use? What kind of drama will you show? What is the achievement? What is the kind of language learning skills that the learner should be able to have at that level? So all that will be embedded in the curriculum in terms of content. Once the content has been selected, the next exercise that the curriculum planners have to do is to decide how is this curriculum going to be organized in the classroom. Here we will talk about that it could be the classroom in a face-to-face situation. The curriculum could be in a face-to-face situation to be delivered. It could be an online curriculum. It could be a curriculum through the blended mode. All these things are decided, or they are talked about or kept in mind when the curriculum is being designed. And organization of learning experiences also helps to ensure that the aims and the content which has been selected is properly delivered, so that there is a engaging and effective learning environment which is built in the classroom or in the online class, and the objectives and outcomes are achieved through this kind of experiences that the learners are put through. The last thing which is there, which is very important, is the evaluation. If you will remember, in block 2, when we were doing it, I had shown you the Dick, Carey and Carey model, in which we had talked about how the curriculum is designed. And the last part of that also was evaluation, because evaluation is the aspect which tells us whether what we had aimed for, has that been achieved. So when we're talking about curriculum planning, the curriculum planners also say what kind of an evaluation will take place. For instance, when we're talking about the Masters in Distance Education or the Diploma in Distance Education, I have just told you that the evaluation pattern is such that we have allotted 25% weightage to the assignments and 75% weightage to the theory examinations. This is where, and we have also decided what kind of a pattern the assignments will be, and we have also decided at different times what kind of outcomes are going to be tested. Now, it could well be that you may have a subject like, for instance, you may have a subject like physics, where there is a practical component. So the curriculum designers will decide beforehand how much weightage is going to be given to assignments, how much to the practicals in the laboratory, and how much to theory classes. So depending upon the discipline, the scheme of examination is built accordingly. So usually these are the 4 aspects that are taken care very, very carefully while designing the curriculum. Next, let's come to see how, when we're talking about selection of content and the designing of learning experiences, then let us look at how this curriculum is structured. There are different ways. You can, your committee, your curriculum committee, or your curriculum planners can decide how the curriculum is going to be placed. For instance, if your committee decides that we will have a topic wise selection of the content, then you will select the, when you're selecting the content, then of course you will place the aims and objectives. But when you are placing the content, you will select different topics where you can, which are interlinked with each other, and you will place them in any order which you feel, which might be decided by the planners, and you will take up these topics and place them in the curriculum. This type of sequencing of curriculum is called a topic wise selection, a topic wise sequencing. On the other hand, there are some disciplines which lend themselves to what is called cause and effect. Cause and effect is used in some disciplines, often, very often, in subjects, in disciplines like history, or even in social sciences. This cause and effect is used very often to decide the way in which the curriculum is structured. Here, what happens is that the phenomena and the relationship between its cause and what happens because of this, what is the effect of this cause, this is the way in which the curriculum is structured. For instance, when you talk about something like a course on environment, and you're talking about trying to talk about the climate change, so you will talk about cause. What is it that has resulted in in climate change? What are the reasons by which the topography, as well as the geographical phenomena that is taking place, are affected, and what is the effect upon the livelihood or the living of people? Why is it that why is it that rivers are changing courses? Why is it that you could even start with a case study which starts off why there are fish, or there are fish that are coming out on and dying on the seashores. What is the cause? What is the effect? So there are many such disciplines which can lend themselves very easily towards cause and effect curriculum. Even in history, what was the reason? Why did this happen? Why is it that a new country was created? What was the cause? What were the reasons that led to it? So depending upon the subject which has to be taken up, the subject matter which has to be taken up, this type of a curriculum sequencing can also take place. Another thing is, another way in which curriculum may be developed is called structural logic, where you are logically presenting a sequence which naturally flows from one to the other. And these type of logical thinking is also adopted by a discipline, because again the discipline demands that a logical flow should be there. You cannot put the cart before the horse, because logically the horse must come forward. So there are disciplines which have to be developed in that way. Again, problem centered also. You might take up a problem, which is, as I said, a case study. You could take up that this is the problem which is taking place, and build, you could take up a set of problems and build the curriculum around it. And through the curriculum, working through the curriculum, how this can be structured, how a solution can be found for these problems. This can also be another way by which curriculum can be sequenced. Often there is also the spiral approach is also used. This was approach which is built on the learning theory that learning takes place when it is built upon a hierarchy of knowledge. You'll remember that Bruner talked about hierarchy of knowledge and about how there has to be linkages between what is taught at a lower level and then higher and higher. So in the same way, when we're talking about spiral curriculum, you could use the topic, maybe if you're talking say at school level or maybe at the level of middle school, you will introduce the topic, but the same topic will be talked about in a greater depth at say higher secondary school, and then the same topic is used with different dimensions at graduation and postgraduate stage. So you will find that the topic is expanded, the depth of the topic goes on increasing. There is different type of dimensions that are added to the topic. From a very simple topic you can make into, and the topic also breaks up into different detailed. For instance, when we talk about say history, maybe in class in school we just use it as one of the subjects that you have one class on history, but as you go on to BA and graduation, you can do ancient India, you can do ancient history, you can do archaeology, you can do social and economic history, you can do so many different types of subjects are there, and the same topics is built up in a way. Chronological, of course, as it is very clear, it is based upon time. So it has to be a linear approach where you follow a timeline approach in which the subject is taught. Backward chaining is very interesting. Backward chaining approach is when you find that you are using the solution to study the path. This you are using the solution to study how is it that this solution can be used to understand the phenomena which has brought about such a thing. So this backward chaining is also used many times. Why it is used is because many times the solution is already there, but you need to study how did this happen, and from the solution you work backwards to see what was it that took place, what were the processes, what were the practices, what were the causes that took place, and you work backwards to form a chain, and that's why it's called backward chaining. In terms of a loose network, of course, as we said, talked about a topic, that there can be a loose network by which different areas of a discipline are taken up and they're connected in a very loose network. If you look at the curriculum, when we look at the curriculum, you should also, when you analyze the curriculum, you should try to see how the curriculums are built. And when you are, many of you I know are teachers, you should try to also analyze how your own curriculum has been designed in your classes, or if you're going to be a part of any curriculum committee, or if you're asked to make a curriculum, then you can also think that what is the structure, what is the kind of sequencing that will be done so that the curriculum is designed in a scientific manner. So can I proceed ahead?
Yes, Prof.
So now, okay, thank you. So now I'm coming to another area, which is that of in the curriculum. When we're talking about curriculum and we're talking about areas, there is this important idea of concept maps. Has any of you ever heard or seen concept maps? Do you use concept maps in your work? By any chance, any of you, do you use concept maps?
Um, yeah, Prof. We had learned about concept mapping with is it in education technology? So we are
technology.
able to use it. Concept map,
Okay.
yes.
Yes, yes, it is used a lot in technology, but concept mapping has been used even before technology became the big thing that it is, because the basic idea is that when we are talking about when we are talking about concepts, then concept maps help us to understand a concept, but more importantly, they help us to link the different concepts in when we are teaching or when we are learning or when we are trying to understand. We are trying to understand a larger phenomena. Then these concept maps help us to interlink with each other. Topics can be interlinked through through concept maps, and this type of concept maps will show how there is a flow of knowledge from one concept to the other. As we were talking about different curriculum sequencing, then here also in your curriculum sequencing also, you need to see how is one topic linked to the other, irrespective of which whatever sequencing design you use, but at least your topics should be linked to each other so that the learner can make a logical sense of how the course is progressing. And you should I have put this Novak's name here, because if you get a chance, do read about the work which has been done by JD Novak in terms of trying to understand what are concept map. And I'm now showing you a concept map which was made by during one of the workshops that we did in IGNOU. In fact, this has been made by the faculty of IGNOU who wanted to start a course on rural entrepreneurship. This is from the Department of Continuing Education, where they wanted to do a rural entrepreneurship course they wanted to set up. So this is one type of concept map which was done. And when you are talking about this concept map, sorry, I also want you, I think this is something which you must have been shown or you may have seen, where when we talk about IGNOU and we talk about the way in which the curriculum is developed in IGNOU, this is also a kind of hierarchical concept map which is used by IGNOU for its courses. And here the concepts are in such a way that the main program is divided into courses, and those courses are divided into blocks. The blocks are then further divided into units, and each unit has a section and the section has a subsection. If you look at your course, like for instance, when we look at MD 412, then the program of course is MDE, but the course is MD 412. And in this MD 412, just one moment, student. In this course, in this MD 412, there are different blocks. When I say that today we are talking about block 4, then block 4 has a name, and that block 4 is instructional design pattern. In practice. Block 1 was foundations of learning. Within the block, you had different units. The total number of units of MD 412 are 22. And each unit is a part of a block. Some blocks will have 4 units, some blocks might have 5 units. But within the units also, we have sections 1.1, 1.2. You might also have 1.1.1. because that is a subsection. In each section, there is a theme which is going through and a concept that is going through. So that is why now, for instance, the design that I showed you again of rural entrepreneurship, when this concept map was made by the faculty, if you see the green part, that is the core, which is the whole idea and the concept of rural entrepreneurship. If you see the yellow parts, then these are four ideas, four thought processes, which the faculty, which the course coordinators, the curriculum planners, felt were key ideas which had to be come into this idea or into this course on rural entrepreneurship. And these were about rural, or the concept, about the promotion, about rural development itself, and about the strategies and experiences. So these four yellow parts became the blocks. And within these blocks, they talked about, for instance, if we are talking about, they're talking about concept, process, and strategy. Then they wanted to talk about concept and theories of entrepreneurship. What is the need and significance of this? What is the historical background of rural entrepreneurship? And so on. So the parts which are in the blue represent the different units, the different concepts, which were then placed in each unit. So the green is the full program, the yellow is the blocks, and the blue parts are those concepts which are reflected in the units. They may be one unit or they may be two units, but basically this concept map tends to link all the concepts related to rural entrepreneurship, which this school of IGNOU wants it to offer in its course. So that is why when we're doing course planning and when we're talking about instructional design, concept maps are important. Another important thing is that of the course design matrix. When we're talking about course design matrix, concept map then is just one of those course design matrices. As I told you, if you see this chart which is there, you'll see that there is a program, there are modules or there are blocks and there are units, which you can see unit 1, 2, 3, 4. Then there is the concept map and the learning outcomes. This is then followed by the credit hours. Have you any idea what this credit hours is all about? What is credit hours? Anybody? Have you heard this idea before? Credit hours? Yes, Mr. Ado. Yes, Miss. Anyone on credit hours?
Yes, I can attempt that.
Please attempt. I am only asking for an attempt so that we get some ideas.
So yes, credit hours. Credit hours is the time that will take for you to deliver that module or course. So for example, if I'm teaching, let's say I'm a secondary teacher, I'm teaching biology, and I'm teaching about human skeleton. How long am I going to teach human skeletons for? So if it takes 17 hours or it takes 7 hours, I have to divide that 7 hours into a day. So how many days, how many hours per day? So if it's 2 hours in 7 hours total, how many hours do I need per day? So it's a matter of the time that you are giving to that module, the course. I think so. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. I think that is excellently attempted. In fact, you've made my job much easier. Were you able to understand what Mr. Wilson was saying? Credit hours. Credit hours, as he very rightly said, is the number of hours that a learner will take to study a particular concept. And based upon that, the course design is important, because when you say, for instance, when we look at again the PGDDE program, and we say that the course MD 412 is of 6 credits, then 6 credit tells us that how many hours will it take? Will it take 6 hours? No. Every institution decides what is the equivalence of credits to hours. As Mr. Wilson says, how long will it take to teach that course or the concept? For instance, when we are looking at this course on MD 412, it's a 6 credit, and IGNOU has decided that 1 credit is equal to 30 hours of study. So when we are talking about 6 credits, that this is a 6 credit course, then we are talking about how many hours? 30 into 6. So if the learner will have to take 180 hours to study this course on that. Now, if my course is, maybe if it is a certificate course, which is of a lesser value, a certificate diploma are of lesser value than a postgraduate course. So supposing I say that this course is a MOOC, which is of 2 credits. It basically means that the curriculum planners and the designers, the amount of content that has been put is such that it should be able to be completed, if I'm talking about IGNOU, 2 into 30, which is 30 hours of study. So therefore, these credit hours are important because they help you to balance out your study load, the load which the learner will have to, your content load, balance it out with the number of hours. You cannot, as a curriculum planner, you cannot put overload. You have to ensure that the amount of content that you're putting is commensurates with the number of hours which the learner will have to study. And based upon that, the course credits are allotted. I hope that I am able to make myself clear on this credit. On the credits.
Sorry, Professor, maybe I had network challenge. On the credit and hours, how do you determine hours and the credits?
How do you determine?
My hours
Okay.
and the
Yes.
credits. For example,
Yes.
you have a course. Yes. How do you determine the credit and the hours?
See, this is based on 2 things. One, of course, is policy, an equivalence to the qualification. And the second is on the design of the course. For instance, in IGNOU, again, I'm talking about my university. In your university, it may be different. And in India, in fact, the regulating body has said that all qualifications have to have credits. For instance, if we talk about the qualification, which is a certificate program, if you are giving a student a qualification of a certificate program, then what is the number of credits that the learner must do? Is it 20? Is it 40? Is it 60? What is it? So uniformly that decision is taken. So in your country also, depending upon the qualification, it will come. So that when you say that that this person has done a certificate course, automatically you know what is the amount of workload that the person has gone through. Like in India now, as of now, the course we are talking about, the Masters in Distance Education, it is 64 credits. But now the government of India has said that all programs which are going to be postgraduate programs, which is masters of programs, they have to have 80 credits. So now we are all in the process of revising our programs from 64, 72 to go to a higher credit level. So supposing you have a program which is a diploma program or a postgraduate diploma program, that will automatically have lesser credits, like 40 credits. A certificate program will have, which is a lower qualification than postgraduate, of course, will have lesser credits and might have just 20 credits. So that is a uniform standards which the regulatory bodies decide depending upon the qualification that the learner is going to get. You can't have somebody coming out of, say, somebody coming who is studying, let's say if you're talking about Nigeria and you're studying about Lagos, there are two universities there, and you say Open University of Nigeria will give a master's degree program which is of 60 credits, and the other university will give a master's program which is of 40 credits, which means that the two programs are not equivalent. So in India, this is why the regulatory body has said that depending upon the qualification, the credits will be decided, which also means that when you are designing, and now I'm coming to the academic part of it. This was the policy part of it. Once you know that you have to have a course which is going to be only of, say, 20 credits, then you then have to decide the, if you remember my assessment pattern and the selection of content slide, which I showed you right at the beginning, then you have to decide the credits and how you're going to place your topics within those credits. Which topic will you give more study hours to? If you have a subject like biology, which you was talking about, which parts of the biology content will you give more study hours to? Then that course will have more. Will your course have assignments, watching videos, reading course materials? How will you plan? What is it that you will give? Like, for instance, as I told you that we have put a weighted of 25%. How will you decide the evaluation pattern? Then as teachers, we have to decide that if this is the amount of work, of study load that we are giving, then subject specialist, discipline specialist have to decide which topic of the discipline demands more study hours as against something which is of lesser. That's where your role as teachers comes in. So deciding credits is both related to the qualification as well as to the discipline, so that the study load is balanced with what the person gets when they walk out into the market to get with that qualification, to get a job or to seek some kind of other employment or higher studies.
I have a question, Doc. Yes.
Yes, please, Morris.
So one credit is equivalent to how many hours? One credit is equivalent to how many hours?
In IGNOU, I'm again saying in IGNOU, as an institution, we have said that one credit is equal to 30 hours. We say that because we are a distance learning institution, and we know that the student is going to be spending that much time reading the material and writing the assignments. Because our pattern is different. We are not a face-to-face university. We are a different university. So our study hours take into account the fact that the student has to do an assignment, the student has to do maybe a project work, student has to read the material. So these components help us. But your credit hours will be decided by your institution based upon, if you're a face-to-face institution, you might have based upon how how many classes the teacher takes in a day for a topic, how many classes are required to cover the topic. That will decide your credits. It is done very scientifically because the content load has to match with the credits. So I think let us proceed a little bit because we are still at the course design only. Now, after the credit hours, we talk about learning resources. Here we are talking about in distance education, we are talking about, when we talk of learning resources, we are talking about the printed course materials, like the ones that are, or the e-content which is available in the form of printed units. We are talking about the audio visuals. We are talking about MOOCs which support the printed resources. There may be some other handbooks which are given. There may be some other notes that are given by the teachers. There may be some other manuals which are given by the teachers. These are all part of the learning resources that are provided. Activities, there could be, depending on your discipline and the nature of the discipline, there could be activities that you are required, that learners are required to do. So if there are activities, you will cater for that in the course also. And again, assignments. In IGNOU, in the distance learning, we give assignments because we don't have that kind of a feedback mechanism of a day-to-day class which is taking place. In a classroom where the teacher is standing, there is immediate feedback which is given. Like for instance, just now I'm speaking to you, you are asking me questions, you are giving me your feedback, I am teaching. So there is an immediate engagement. But this is only because there is an online class going on. Subsequently, you after that you are studying on your own. So therefore, this assignment is also a way by which you are showing the teacher what is the progress that you have made. It could also be a portfolio. Nowadays, in many disciplines, portfolio has become very important, and portfolio is being done to demonstrate what is the work done by the learner. And lastly, most importantly, when we are designing a course, then the assessment rubric has to be made. I said that earlier on also, that in the curriculum design, this is important. How is it that you are going to assess the learner? What are the assessment mechanisms that you are going to use? What is the scheme of examination that will be followed? In some universities, which are face-to-face universities, you have only one examination which takes place at the end of the year. You could also have a semester system where examinations take place after every 6 months. You could have a system where you have a unit test which is taking place. That again depends upon your design, the way that you have designed your curriculum and you have designed it. So before we go on further, any questions on this part?
Prof, yes.
Yes.
So I've seen the concept mapping and course design matrix are almost the same. So now when you are designing a curriculum, should you have to include both of them, or you can pick on one? Because the information on the course design matrix, you can also put them on the concept mapping.
The concept mapping is a part of the course design matrix. You see, concept mapping only links the concept together, right? This is the concept map which you saw. This, 1 minute. This is the concept map which you saw. This concept map is linking together the concepts. Okay. But the course design matrix is giving you in one sheet, it is giving you so many more things. So the course design matrix is more in depth and gives you scope also to think out, put your course design on the table and draw it out so that you are able to, you don't miss out anything. You don't miss out what has to be done. You might add in this course design matrix, which I've given, you might like to add something else also. In your learning resources, for instance, because this is made from, this we are done in IGNOU, so it is made based upon the ODL system. But when you're talking about learning resources, you might say library work, you might give some other reference work, laboratory work. We do not have this kind of we do not have this type of a thing where we are doing face-to-face classes. So which is why we have written P, which is printed self-learning material, but you would write something else. So the course is, see, what I'm giving you is an exemplar, which as teachers you can modify to suit your particular condition. But it will have, most of these things will be common, but you might be having some other time. For instance, you might like to, when you're doing it in the activities, you might like to have a games period, or you might like to have some physical activity that is to be done by the learner, sports or playing or something like that. And again, this also depends upon the level. For instance, when we're talking about, say, middle school or high school, then there will be a lot of activities that you will do. You could also have models, or you could have trips, or you could have excursions where students are taken out to see historical monuments or some other activity like that. Okay. So here we go. Yeah, here's something which I was wanted to ask you. Identify some key points to be considered while designing open and distance learning materials. Any observations on this? Here, what is it when you're designing course materials? What is it that you should keep in mind?
The first thing is the needs of the learner, where we develop the objectives and the outcomes.
Okay. Objectives and outcomes, you should be aware of them. Yes.
The other point is selection of the content.
Selection of content. Okay. Someone else? Not necessarily.
The activities that learners should, and
what kind of activities you will give?
Yes, and then the method of assessing the learner's performance, maybe assignments and examinations.
Yes, absolutely correct. Anyone else?
Yes, duration, ma.
Yes, Mr. Osman.
Duration, time, ma.
Time in which it is to be completed.
Timing for the exercise.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. So that is true, and most importantly, which is not part of this thing, we had already studied that. Remember the ADDI model, ADDI, or the Assure model, where the first thing was the analysis of the learners, analysis of who your target group is going to be. So that is also important to keep. When we're designing materials, we have to keep that in mind also. Okay, so let me now proceed ahead. So when we're talking about this, when we're talking all the answers that you gave me, that is very important. But when we're designing self-learning materials, in view of this, that your learners are at a distance, you don't know your learners, they are diverse, and you have to include so many things in them. It is important that the self-learning material then be such that they are self-explanatory. The learner doesn't need a teacher standing in front of them. They are able to understand them. They contain everything, whether it is graphics, whether it is question answers, whether it is hints to the answers, but they try to contain all these things so that the learner, who is again a self-learner, does not have to be disturbed. They are also self-directed, because here you are giving the learner the authority to pace out their own learning. The learner is deciding, when am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? So they are also giving the learner that kind of directions. Very importantly, that they have to be such that they help the learner to motivate themselves. For instance, if you see that the question answers are inbuilt within the even self-evaluating, because when you see check your progress, there is a little box there and there are some lines where the learner can handwrite the answers. And this type of self-evaluation, self-motivation, keeping the self-learning in mind, and to see that the progress that is being made is as per schedule, the learner the material has to play the role of a teacher in print, even if the physical teacher is not present. But this material, in terms of the learner, teacher is very much playing that role. Okay. When we are talking about, now we are coming back to the content. When we are designing the content, there are some basic principles that have to be kept in mind. We saw that that during the selection of the content, you can pick up any content, but the important thing is that this content has to be placed in a particular order. And this is order which is well known, which is that you will start from simple to complex. Why? Because as we said in the earlier slide, the material has to be self-motivating. If you give the learner a complex problem and the learner is not able to do it, the learner feels demotivated and might put aside the book. Similarly, if you take up something which is unknown to the learner, we are well aware that all learning theories say that the learning is built on or from known concepts, on that which is familiar to helps learning. Learning takes place in a hierarchy where the lowest level is that of the known parts. Similarly, what can be seen, what is concrete, it is easier for the learner to understand, and therefore content should be from particular, and then from the particular a generalized, maybe a theory is also derived like that, from particular to a general thing. So these are things which should be kept. They are very simple principles, but very valuable, because when you are writing content as distance teachers, you will also, when you're explaining content, you will move in this order so that your distance learner does not feel discouraged and does not leave the teaching learning process. Another thing which is important is that when we are talking about learning outcomes, then the learning outcomes are not separate. Those learning outcomes are to be such that they are reflected in different parts of the content, whether it is the sections or it is your check your progress. Learning outcomes have to be such that they are part of your designing of the material. When you design the material, you will ensure that maybe learning outcome 1 is reflected in the first part of the lesson. It is also assessed in the check your progress. Similarly, you have 2, which is assessed. The assessment part of it is also important, because there is a continuous teaching, learning, assessment process which is going on in the material. Now, when I'm talking to you as potential writers, authors of self-learning material. You are designers, instructional designers of self-learning material. So when you write the material, this is the way which you will write, where the learning outcome will be reflected in the teaching learning through the sections and will be reflected in the assessment through the check your progress or the in-text questions and so on. The next thing that I want to speak about is access devices. In distance learning, this terminology, access devices, comes quite often. What is access devices? Access devices are very simply, if I put it very simply, they are those that answer these kind of questions. How should I plan my structure? How can I make the different contents of the unit interactive and meaningful? Again, I'm talking in terms of distance learning materials. What should I do so that the learners are able to negotiate through the materials? If they are studying on their own, how should I help them study on their own? So these are questions which a distance teacher, which may arise in the mind of a distance teacher who is writing the material. And as a instructional designer, what is it that you should be able to do? These access devices then are those methods by which you as the teacher are able to help the learner negotiate through the learning material. Learning material is speaking to the learner in a particular way. These learning access devices are those devices that help the learner to better understand the material so that the structure is very clear. They are able to make better use of these materials. Then it is not a textbook. It is different from a textbook. And when we're talking about difference of this, one of the major differences is that there are different types of access devices which are used in the learning materials, And these access devices are important because they are also, again, as I said, that everything that we are doing is based on some learning theory or the other. In this case, there are many access devices that come from David Ausubel's, this is David Ausubel's theory of learning, which we read about in block 2, where Ausubel says that learning is based in a hierarchical manner and new knowledge is meaningful when it is related to the already known knowledge. So from known to unknown and from simple to complex. So therefore, these are ways by which the learner is able to learn better. When we are talking about access devices and we're talking about different types of access devices are there, it could be some devices could be access devices. On the other hand, there could be others which are illustrative devices, and we'll talk about illustrative devices just now. They could also be interactive devices and pacing devices. So I'll explain each of these to you one by one. First and foremost, let's talk about the access devices. Access devices can be in the form of your printed material. They can be in the form of course guide, your study guide, manuals, handbooks, notes, pamphlets, brochures, assignments, audio-video material, web-based materials, films. It could be anything, any type of material which which is being given to the learner and helping them there. When we're talking about access devices in printed learning materials, then when we look at a unit, now I'm coming to the designing of a unit. A self-learning material, for instance, when you see your material, when you open your material, when you see your courses, whether it is 411, 2 or 3 or any of the materials, you will see that there is three parts of a unit. The first part is called the introduction. The middle part is called the teaching learning part. And the last part, of course, is called the conclusion. Every unit has got these three parts. So as persons who would be writing material, please remember that you are writing three parts of a unit which combine together to make a unit. The first part of a unit consists of the title. It consists of the structure of the unit. It consists of what is officially called the introduction, the learning outcomes. There may or may not be a concept map, but it is part of if it has to be, then it has to come in the first part. And it could be a list of web resources which you might like to give. When we look at the title, when we look at the title, then when we look at the title, then we are talking about what type of a title are we making. When we're talking about a title, can you suggest to me, why is the title important? Can you tell me why a title is important? Does it even matter?
Let me try. A
Yeah.
title will give a summary of the content.
Okay, summary of the content. Anyone else? Why is the title important?
Yes, ma. The title, just like how Mr. Matthews has said, it gives us an overview, gives us a pre-knowledge about what we are about to study or read.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah,
Yes, Mr. Moses?
yeah, it highlights all the whole course.
It highlights the course.
Yes.
Okay. What else? Any other? These are any other? Yes, Mr. Abbas?
Yes, ma. It tells an area to be covered.
Area to be covered?
Yes.
Area to be covered?
Yes.
I'm looking for one more word which I want to hear. Yes, Mr. There's someone else who has raised their hand. I missed that out. Please.
It gives a picture of a book.
It gives a picture of the book. Mr. Usman. Yes, Mr. Moses. Another answer. There was someone else also who's raised. Please go ahead. Yes, Mr. Moses.
It gives us an idea of the scope of the topic.
Scope of a topic. Yes. Scope of a topic is also good. What about Mr. Nailatu? Mr. Usman. Yes, Mr. Usman.
Okay, ma. I think a title is maybe the name. Is a name given to the topic, given to what a learner is about to study. A name.
A name which is given to the learner to study.
About to study, yes, ma'am.
Okay. I think there's somebody else also who wants to say, who had raised a hand. Mr. Moses again.
The title, ma, is also giving an overview to the learner to know the specific limitation and the limitation of the study.
To show the limitation. Okay. And what about Mr. Bukhari? You want to say something? Okay, so yes, a title is all those things that you talked about, but the one that I was also looking for and hoping that one of you would say that is that the title creates a sense of curiosity in the learner. It is, of course, giving you a picture of the unit. It is telling you what is going to come. It is there, but it is like the opening of a door. And therefore, when you are going to enter, when you look at a book, if you go to a book fair or if you go to a bookshop, before you even flick through it, you want to see what is it. What is it about the title that excites you? And let me tell you that titles today can be very, in inverted commas, non-academic, because the catchiness, in many cases, there are titles which are very, very distinct, and even research papers today have titles which are very distinct, so that there is an immediate need to see what is inside. I want to read what is inside. So that the fact that they are able to motivate, the fact that they are able to arouse the curiosity of the learner is also a very important part, which is played by the title. So that is why I wanted to spend a little time talking about the title. And of course, all that you said is very much correct as far as title is concerned. The next thing is the structure of a unit. When we look at the structure of the unit, we are talking about the fact that in one bird's eye view, the entire structure of the unit is visible. For instance, here, when I'm giving you an example and I'm showing you a unit structure from the course, we are talking about structure unit 2, unit design, 2.1 introduction, 2.2 blah blah, 2.3. So the moment the learner opens the introductory part, they know at a glance what is it that I'm going to be studying in this unit. So therefore, the structuring of the unit is important so that there is a holistic view of the whole unit before the learner. The learner is well aware this is what is going to come, this is what comes before, and this is what comes after. The structuring gives a full view of the unit. And that's why it's important. The next part is the introduction. The introduction, as we said, is important because in the introduction, the knowledge of the previous unit is being linked to the present unit, as well as there is a small touch of what is going to come in this unit. So many times, if you see a unit which is written in your course, you will find that it might start off by saying, in the previous unit, we discussed this. The previous unit gave you an introduction of this. Many times, I also start my class by saying that in the previous class, you have studied this, or I ask you questions about the previous class, because I'm also trying to link what was already done in the previous classes to this class. And an introduction, of course, tells you what is going to come ahead in this class. In terms of learning outcomes, we are well aware of learning outcomes. What learning outcomes are? They will, for the learner, and writing learning outcomes in distance education is important because the learner themselves knows that these are what I am supposed to achieve. It gives them an idea of what they are supposed to do and what they will be assessed on. Concept maps and menus may not be present in all the units of a course, but as writers and as those who are distance teachers, we can make our own concept maps so that when we are teaching or when we are writing, then the flow and the interconnectivity between concepts is very much present and helps us to better develop the unit. Similarly, today, in this time where everything is on the internet, therefore, the menus of support items or learning resources, which can be given from the website, are also useful for learners. So when you do this introduction, you will see that this is this I'll come to a little later. These are things that are important. Here I've already shown you the structure, and this we will do later. So these are important, which are there. Now I just want to show you 1 minute. I would also like to show you what is yes. Now let's come to the second part, which is the teaching learning part of the unit. The second part, which I said was the teaching learning part, the second part is the main body of the unit. In this main body of the unit, what is it that is being put? Here, first and foremost, the detailing out of the content is done. This detailing out of the content is done in such a way that there are different sections, subsections in which the content is organized. You take one section, it will contain one theme or one idea, one concept. That section, if it is a concept which has different ideas, then you will divide it into subsections. Each subsection should be numbered so that the learner is able to better relate to the structuring in terms of a logical presentation of the material. Every subsection will be followed, every section will be followed by an evaluation, because one of the characteristics of self-learning material is that the learner is going to self-test, self-evaluate. So this check your progress is written so that the learner can themselves check their progress and they are able to see whether they've learned it or not. Each of these units is designed in such a way that it is attractive. It helps the learner to negotiate through this part, and therefore you have headings, you have different types of fonts, you have font sizes which are there. You have also have a different layout which is given. In many cases, when you have some sort of activities given, you can also add an icon. It could be, supposing you have a reflection box that you want to put in. So you could have a small emoji kind of a thing which is put there as an icon, or you could have a, if it's a question mark, you could put a question mark there. If it's an assessment, check your progress, you could put a question mark there. You know, you can, through illustrative devices, you can put a lot of interesting things to make your material look very, very attractive. These illustrative devices which we spoke about, those illustrative devices can be in the form of bullets. They could also be in the form of diagrams which you do, and diagrams are used very, very much so when you're talking about subjects like science or any kind of thing. Then they use a lot of diagrams. Labeling those diagrams are also labeled. Similarly, you may have in economics, in finance, you have tables which are there. Statistics, you will have tables which are also used there. These tables and these diagrams supplement what is given in the text. Again, bar charts, flow charts, figures, graphs, maps, these are all devices that help the learner to better understand, better negotiate through the material, and they also come in the category of access devices which are there. When we're talking about interactive devices are those devices which create a sense of interaction and engagement of the learner with the material. Remember, we are talking about distance learners who do not have a face-to-face teacher in front of them. So therefore, their engagement has to be with the material itself. And or if you are doing group learning, or if you are having an online class where there is an opportunity for some sort of a discussion or even reflection, where questions are asked, it could be a reflection box that you put in, where the student is forced to reflect upon it. Even within check your exercise, check your progress, there could be an opportunity where the learner has to think through. A case study might be given and the learner may be asked to present a solution. So these are ways by which the learner is engaged. There could be activities where the learner is asked to, like for instance, it could be a demonstration. So the learner is asked, please go and get a glass, put water in it, put half of it here, there. So those kind of activities are also such that they help in some sort of engagement with the material and with learning. And of course, check your progress is very much there because of the thing. Before I go forward, what do you think is in the last part? We talked about there being 3 parts of the course. One is the introductory part, one is the teaching learning part, and the last part is the conclusion. So in a unit, which parts do you think are the conclusion? What could be in the conclusion part of the unit? Yes, Mr. Moses.
The summary of the
Yes.
whole course.
Mr. Moses,
Yes,
who's responding?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Moses.
Yes, the conclusion part will cover the many aspects of the topic or the title, which was under discussion. So it is going to give the final analysis, or in other words, the take-home message about what the topic has covered in terms of the most important points which have come out from the topic.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Then I think there's a Mr. Moses Sunday. Is that the same? That's Mr. Scott? I'll call you Mr. Scott. That's easier for me to distinguish from Mr. Moses Firi and Mr. Moses Scott.
Okay, ma'am. What I'm trying to say is that the conclusion part will contain the summary of the whole course. And also, if there are answers to the interactive section, then the answers will be provided, and probably there are references that needs to be done, maybe material that are cited by designing the course. So I think these are things that should be in the conclusion part.
Okay, so Mr. Moses Firi and Mr. Moses Scott have said that the end will have the take home, what has been learned, the summary of what has been taught. These are two major things which they have said. Anybody else would like to add to what could be in the last part? Because we've done the introduction, we've done the teaching learning part, but now we have to somehow close the chapter, close the unit. So how are we going to close the unit? Any other suggestions?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, who's Mr. Bukar? Yes, Mr. Bukar.
The
Then after that, Mr. Wallace.
Should
yes, ma'am.
The conclusion should give.
Yes, Mr. Zebedi, please continue.
I think he has a network challenge. Let me also give what I think. A summary of the main points of the topic. You give the main points of the topic. Summary of the main points of the topic. That should be a conclusion.
Okay, fine. Yes, Mr.
Yes,
Bukar.
ma'am. In conclusion, it contains the summary of the whole topic being discussed, and also the recommendation of what was not being discussed, but it's also important.
Okay, thank you. Yes,
Yeah, just to
Madam
add,
Fatima.
just to add.
Yes.
When you are talking about the unit from what we have seen, it has topics. So meaning the conclusion should give a summary of what has been talked about in the unit.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Madam Fatima. First, Madam Fatima.
Almost everyone has said what I was already about to say. The conclusion should cover the summary parts of the topic in few sentences, actually.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Mr. Moses.
Yes, it can also cover the implications of what has been covered in the topic.
Okay, implications of what is covered. Okay. So, Mr. Nailatu, Mr. Usman.
Okay, sometimes after mentioning the key points of the lesson, it sometimes touches the evaluation to conclude the lesson. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Explain that a little bit. Evaluation, how?
Evaluation, that's to know more about, to ask questions, to assess the outcome of the learning.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
So basically, most of you have talked about the fact that it is the summary, and it gives the conclusion. It highlights the main points, and it's the take home, which is correct. But there is something more to it also, because The conclusion is the part which is actually very important, because of course you are summing everything, but you are adding a little bit more also. Why? Because in the last part when you're doing, what we are doing in the summary is that we are concluding, but we are also opening the way for the next lesson. And before doing that, there are some things which you need to add. For instance, you might like to add a glossary in the last part of it. You might also like to add some more web resources in the last part, so that the learner is able to the. If it is a course which is a higher level course, which is an MA course, you might like to add references which were used in the unit, right? And very, very importantly, when we have done check your exercises, check your progress in the teaching learning part of it, here's the part where you will give either answers or hints to answers, so that the self learner is able to check whether they were on the right track or not. These answers, this is the place where the learner gets a response to what they were thinking about and whether they were on the right track or not. These are all parts of the last part. The last part is not just the conclusion, it is much more, because this is a place where the learner is. That is why I thought that Madam Naitalu is going to talk about the assessment, because this is the place where the learner is actually seeing whether was my assessment correct, or do I need to do some other kind of reading which is supposed to be there. So in the first part, it's very clear, title, structure, so on. Teaching learning part is there, sections, subsections. But the last part is also very important, because that is where, in addition to summing up, there is extra information which is given to the learner, which they can use for their betterment. Like I said, glossary, answers, hints, web notes, references. All these come in the last part of the unit. Okay, and I would also like to show you. Just let me see if I'm able to do that. I would also like to show you the part where the learner is. If you just a moment, if you are able to see this slide. One moment. If you are able to see the slide where, yes, if you see the slide where the first part is the title, the next part is the introduction, objectives. These three are the introduction, the learning unit, the responses, which is check your progress. There's immediate feedback which is coming through, check your progress, and you are proceeding. The last part is what have you learned, in case there are some other detailed questions that can also come in the last part, the term assessment, as I said. And here's another part which we all missed out, which is enrichment material. Another part of it is enrichment material. There may be something, that little something more. Maybe you are leaving behind a thought which the learners need to do, a story from your own context, which you want the learner to read in terms of enrichment. It is not an assessment part of it, but it is that something more which you want the learner to go home with. So that enrichment material could also come in. And of course, the answers to the questions. So these are all very, very important aspects when you're writing the unit. These are important parts which you have to do. And just before we talk a little bit about the assessment also, When we're talking about that, the assessment as an access devices, then you will see that that assessment is there can be different types of assessments which are done. In fact, interactive devices are there, where you can have activities which are question based, which will be in the form of check your progress. But as I said, also you can have reflection, which is an activity which will enhance the interaction. And many times when we depending upon the discipline in which you are writing, you will have more question based activities, or you may have case studies, or you may have reflection type of activities. So depending upon the type of the nature of your discipline, as well as the level at which you are teaching. So these are all important. This is where I think I can stop here. I've done this. This also I've done. So these are all important things that are there. And just to say that in the assessment part of it, remember that you still have to go back to your learning theories, because when we are talking about learning theories, this type of things which we've done in block 1 and block 2, which is on Bloom's taxonomy, Anderson's revised taxonomy, Bloom's revised taxonomy, these are all coming to play when we are talking about the formation of learning outcomes and the assessment of questions. So I'm going to stop here now, and we can take up a few questions if you think that you would need to ask some questions. We'll take up the questions now in case there's anything related to this. And I can see that, yes, madam, have you raised your hand, or is it from the previous part, Ms. Netalu and Mr. Matthews? Would you like to ask a question?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Matthews.
Yeah, we explained about the introduction as well as the conclusion, maybe of the lesson. Now my question is, between these two, introductory part and then the conclusion part, which one is the major important aspect as far as lesson is concerned? Between the introduction and conclusion, which one is a very important component in lesson delivery? Thank you.
You see, they are both parts of the writing of a unit. As distance writers, this course is teaching you how to design instruction. Tomorrow you will be writing such material which you are studying today. So in this session that we did today, the idea was to teach you how to write that material. So as I said, that in the introduction, that's important because you're introducing the topic, you're giving the learning outcomes, you are drawing the structure. Based upon the introduction, the middle section, which is teaching learning, comes about. And in the last part, you are summarizing and you're giving them extra material in terms of answers, glossary, enrichment material. So both are equally important. I can't say that the introduction is more important than the summary, because if you leave out the introduction, then you are headless. If you leave out the summary, then you're not standing on anything. So you see, all three parts are equally important. It's just for this session today was just to explain to you the logical way in which distance learning material is prepared.
I have a question, Professor.
Yes, please carry on.
If I'm specialized, for example, in mathematics, now as a course designer, now we are taught to develop maybe a course in maybe biology. What role should I play in that part? Because I'm not specialized in biology, I'm a mathematician. Now, as instructional designer, which role can I play?
I'm just trying to understand your question. Your subject specialization is mathematics and you want to design material in biology?
Yes.
Is that the question?
Professor.
Well, normally what happens is that your Mr. Moses, you see what happens is that normally you write material in the area of your specialization, because writing material is actually much more difficult than teaching in a face-to-face mode, because every word that you write has to be for instance, we say that one unit is to be of between 4,000 words. So every word has to be taken in such a way that your unit is not 20 pages. It is within that much time you have to write carefully. So I would think that if you are specializing in maths, you should be writing materials in maths only, because it's a very, very specialized task that you need to do. I can't tell you that you should write materials in biology, because you need to understand biology to be able to write materials in that. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Any other? Yes, Mr. Anything else that you would like to ask? So, if we are done, then we can have our class photo with your videos on, so that we can take a picture of the class. Can we take a picture of our class? Mr. Jimmy, Mr. Vinescia? Okay, nice to see you all. Okay, thank you so much. And this is my last class, so let me also say goodbye to you all and to wish you well.
Yeah, hope to meet
Goodbye,
you
man.
again.
Thank you so much.
Goodbye, man.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure teaching you, and thank you so much. And I wish you
We are blessed, man.
for next month. I wish you a happy Easter also in advance, and I hope that you do well in your examinations. Of course, we are very much there to help you. Any problem, anything, you are most welcome to write through the LMS that will reach us.
Thank you, man.
And again,
Hi, ma'am.
best wishes for
I
the
have one
examination.
question actually.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
man.
Thank you too.
Thank
God
you, ma.
bless you.
Thank you, ma.
Thank you.
Thank you.